everyone. I know everyone is looking forward to the pizza, so I will try to make sure this is as good as fun as possible. I don't know, best is always high expectations to live up to, but we'll see. So first, this is Common. I'm Common. We have some new swag that we're kind of repping. So yesterday we actually announced basically a rebrand from Commonwealth to Common, announcing 1.0. And yeah, we're really here to help basically anyone create on-chain together for their DAO, for their meme community, for their NFT project, whatever it is. So a little bit about myself. I'm Dillon. I helped get this off the ground. So back in the day, I got my first Bitcoin back in 2013. It's been a long time, literally 10 years. It's crazy to see Bitcoin back above 60K. I shed a tear when the ETF went online. That's a true story. But since that time, the thing that's really interested me personally has been this aspect of coordinating rather than just like magic internet money. And that's what I'm lucky enough to be working on still to this day. So we launched Commonwealth Labs back in 2018. We worked on a few different projects. This is a spin out of one of them, and it's now called Common. And so I think, from the conversations that we've heard today, I think I gotta click, okay. I gotta click on this side, yeah. DAOs are, fun, sometimes painful, but this is something that I found to be kind of funny. Is all right, you've launched your token, you've helped create a community, you've announced what you want to do, but how do you actually make it a reality? And this is sometimes how it feels. Maybe there's a big gap, and actually, this is the same thing that you feel with a startup. I think you started with a pitch deck, a beautiful vision, maybe some funds that you've raised, and it's stuff that you have to make real. And I don't know, I just wanted to ask, what's the difference between this? So on the left, you see Elon kind of tweeting, hey, I'm taking Tesla private at 420, obviously, haha. But if you've seen the kind of SEC stuff that's been released, so he had a tweet where it's like, hey, or a set of messages and DMs rather, so between him and P. Marco, it's like, hey bro, I'm taking Twitter private, are you in for $1 billion? Yeah, I'm in for $1 billion. And so, it feels very kind of crazy, right? That you can just say something and for him, and it makes it into a reality. So what's the difference between you putting a DAO together and saying that there's a white paper, all these other things, and Elon doing that? And I would just say basically the difference is just common knowledge, getting things done. People trust Elon, to the degree that he can allocate capital. They trust other founders to do so. That's what the markets are for. And a DAO may not be for profit maximization, right? It's for creating and enabling one mission. That's something that you heard maybe on the panel that I was on with Justice, with Tangle, with ATX DAO. And it's about making this thing come true. And so the delta between the ability for Elon or someone else to make that vision come true is different than DAOs. And so I think that basically getting things done is really the difference for DAOs and the centralized corps. And I would actually just say common knowledge are memes. There's something that you believe in, a group believes in, a team believes in. And yes, we think of memes as dog images, cat images, or maybe even NFT projects. But a meme is just a shared belief, right? A shared thing that you think is interesting. And so methodologies like Agile or whatever are also types of memes. And I want to kind of make this a meme as well. DAOs not as just groups of people working together. Yes, that's a thing that functionally it is what it is, but it is, again, trying to make that thing real. And it's not a company, it's not any of these other things that live in Web2 land or meat space. Ideally, it should automatically make that thing or share the thing and make that meme real. So I would call it a hyper meme or a hyperstructure if you read the stuff that Zora puts together, which I think is really great. So what are the structures that we need to do to actually help make DAOs hyper memes? Yeah, just do more work and build more common knowledge. I like this because, it's the point at which we are in the market, but I think this was 2022, the very peak. These guys launched Goat Coin, and I mean, they literally, it's exactly a meme coin, but they built a rocket, and sometimes you can say that's more than what, or it's not a rocket rather, but it's an effigy rather. It's more than sometimes DAOs do, right? And so I think if you've been a part of a startup or work every single day, it's all about the reps and just learning from the market. And so I would just basically say, how do you build common knowledge? You should just run sprints. Some of the pain points, some of the problems that people talked about is like there's so many opinions that are shared on the forums and chats, maybe vocal minority, and appropriately running kind of like time-boxed sprints, contests, whatever you want to call them, I think is worthwhile, and basically the way to make sure that you can actually move forward. And so, no, it's not just for getting the best governance proposal on chain, but generating those memes, working on those ideas, working on those grants, every single kind of like deliverable that you might want, those are different work streams, and you should treat them as such. So different sprints, different cadences do apply, but time-boxed and appropriate. So, and again, this isn't really novel. I think this is really just like describing like what I've seen or what folks are seeing in the space. So first you see seasons, right? In terms of incentivizing on-chain behavior based on as a kind of drop that's actually happening. Second, proposals are also a type of sprint. The sprint is kind of a contest to actually get the votes to actually go, because those aren't indefinite, right? They have a time period. You have 7 days, you have 14 days to get a proposal on chain, but it languishes kind of on the forum, right? So there's no time box there. And then third, I mean, contests, quests, all these other things, they drive behavior, and so they're types of sprints. So I think just making sure that this kind of time box framework can fill out what you do in a DAO so you can get those reps, build common knowledge is what we should be working towards. And so what does it really take to actually make this a reality instead of just like words on the screen? I would just say, like, first, let's identify like what the outputs of the sprint are. So, things that you can represent as like threads, and really you can say threads, right? Deliverables that we can all look at. It could be tweets, introductions to people. It could be governance ideas, grants, but things that you can see and you can kind of measure the output. What are the other outputs that you also get? You see, what ideas are best. It's not just about like putting quantity out there. It's about ranking and making sure that you know what's good, you know what's bad, so you can learn and iterate from next time. And the thing with the on-chain thing is it's not about just like storing that common knowledge in people's heads. Well, you can actually rank and know like, oh, idea A was the best idea, so we should probably try to have more of idea A in the next sprint, right? If we run a contest to create new grants. And so I think that's pretty cool and underrated, and I want to embody that in our product as well. But more specifically, okay, so if you've identified the goal of running one of these sprints, what does it look like? So first, you probably need like, if we'll say like, we run on weekly cadence, weekly sprints. You can do bi-weekly, whatever suits the cadence of the deliverable. You probably need 1,000 different members kind of like in the Discord, on Twitter, across all the other kind of channels your DAO is participating in, just to even see it, right? Because there is a drop off there. And then from there, probably 100 people kind of like, oh, look, this is kind of interesting. I'll upvote, I'll retweet, I'll share. You probably need 100 of those, and then you need 10 ideas to actually come forward from that, right? And then you'll finally have one thing that you can actually do and work on. So I think it's a pretty simple funnel, and that's how my brain works. But the idea is like, it's simple, and I think a lot of what we try to do is overcomplicating things. We're all trying to get work done. It doesn't have to be top-down directed. It ideally is bottomed up, and contests are a way to do that. Sprints are a way to do that as well. And so for us, just this is a little bit of a plug. How do we do that? So first, we actually just shipped our PWA. So one, if you see anyone with a sweatshirt, we'd love to get your feedback on that. But moreover than that, it's not ideally an everything app, it's an everywhere protocol. Your community has different types of attention, maybe on Twitter, Discord, wherever else. And so wherever those ideas are shared, that's where we want to be. And then second, how do you build ownership? How do you rank these ideas? Ideally, you have ownership. If you already have a token, that's really great. That can plug directly in. But basically, kind of power your upvotes so you can actually rank these ideas. And then second, or third rather, you actually have a time-boxed sprint where you actually allocate some rewards. And then at the end of it, based on all the voting, all the rewards, you actually get one idea. And I'm encapsulating points as the way to like capture like what was good, what was bad. But you should also see those things on chain as well. And moreover than that, I think sprints sometimes have this like linear kind of feeling, right? It's just input and output, and technically that's it, right? At the beginning of a sprint, at the beginning of a contest, you have an idea, a thing that you want to drive towards. You have a bunch of people working towards something, and at the end, ideally, you have two things. That's a list of ideas that you want to pursue, and then second, like which ideas are best? Who did the thing? And those should also feed into other contests or other sprints, right? If you work in a company, you know that you may need to hand something off to as a PRD, right? That could take one cycle. And then second, you might hand something off to design. You might vote and discuss on the best design. And then third, you might hand it off to engineering. And so this is quote unquote not agile, but it's an example of how a team might work together. And I think you can already kind of see the shape of this maybe in Web3, where you have like requests for grants that may be from hosted on an ecosystem page, or may just be floating around a Discord. Ideally, it's just sourced from the community, right? So run a contest, run a sprint to generate a number of ideas, find what the best ideas are, and then second, like, okay, like how do we actually flesh one of the top X number of ideas, top 3 ideas out? You run a kind of proposal process. And then third, I mean, we've already seen Optimism do a really great job and also speak earlier to this. You should allocate some rewards after those proposals or projects actually get built out. And so those are just different cadences, different cycles that kind of tie and make these inputs and outputs composable. I actually think, honing in on Optimism RGFP is most interesting because they take the inputs and outputs from like, I can't remember the metrics, and they're using them in voting now, right? And so those are examples of inputs and outputs from these sprints being composable. Just like you might see something in DeFi. And so this kind of idea is like, if you generate and create a sprint, it's not just like something that a community does. A community can come from a thread. Every thread, every sprint, every DAO is kind of a hypermeme, something that gets made more real through time. And it's also not, top down. It is bottoms up. You can fork it, you can create around it. If you don't like it, you can just hone in on it and double down on it. And I think that's really cool. And so that's hopefully what we're building towards. But I want to make this a little bit more concrete. How would someone run a sprint and go through this process, making one kind of like post into a real idea? You would, I think of DAC, kind of a fork of EAC, which is effective accelerationism, which is also an offshoot of like EA. So DAC is something, a post that Vitalik wrote, and when he wrote that post, he talked about a few different technologies, right? It's not just like a keyword or a phrase, right? It's a philosophy, it's an ideology, it's a set of startups that ideally should be made real. And so from this, like you might see the initial thread, you might see kind of a coin for the community start to form, and then you might see kind of people start to create posts around it, right? So from the initial post that Vitalik wrote, he talked about 4 different themes: collective sense making, biodefense, information. I can't remember all 4 exactly, but those are categories for topics and different ideas. And so if you use the coin, use things that people care about, every thread, sprint by sprint, you actually kind of make that ideology more real. And I don't think you need to just apply it to an ideology. You can apply it to anything. And at the end, ideally, you should get whatever that ideology looks like. I think we've seen this, at the beginning of the slide deck with the GOAT coin. But every startup, it's kind of trite, but started with a napkin stitch. There's those famous kind of like photos of Steve Jobs and Steve Wozniak in the garage, right? Just like making making something into like all these devices that we use today. So really, everything can get made real over time, and it just happens with repeated work. If you bring that repeated work on chain and recognize the outputs of it in terms of deliverables, in terms of kind of like who did what and how good was it, you can make those composable, and it ideally can have bottoms up participation to make hyper memes real, make ideas real. That's it for me. Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Dillon. And thank you, Common, for being a partner to help.